Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This is the English translation of the Majlis of Hazrat Maulana QAMAR Sahib Damat Barakatuhum, which took place on Friday morning, mid-morning, Friday the 18th of Rajab 1444, corresponding with the English date 10th of February 2023. Hazrat Wala quotes the ayat of the Quran Majid, وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَلَكِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Hazrat Wala is saying that the author has discussed very highly and very intensely, deeply. Allah Ta'ala make our hal and spiritual state to be in conformity with this type of ta'limat and teachings. There's nothing that you have to leave out. Make your spiritual state in conformity with what we are discussing. So Hazrat Wala quotes some couplets from the Kitab Gulista. Thereafter Hazrat Wala goes on to say that Maulana Tanvi made a lot of tarif and praised this particular kitab. And he used to say that a person who studies Gulista will either become a wali of Allah Ta'ala, or either he will become a badshah, a king. He will become a saint, or he will become a king. Maulana Shibli, Allama Shibli has also praised this kitab tremendously. There was a person who was a collector, or he had a high post from side of government. He used to go on inspections and do this and that and the other. And he was a Saheb Nisbat. He was connected to Maulana Isa Sahib. And he came and he said to Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahib that I've got this problem, and this has come upon me, and that has come upon him. So Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahib then said to him that make this dua to Allah. Allahumma inni dhalilun fa'izzani. O Allah, I am disgraced, therefore grant me honor. Wa inni faqirun, I am destitute, therefore grant me provisions and rizq. Now this is exactly how we should present ourselves in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is how we talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So our kalima, this is our tawheed that we need to rectify, that La ma'buda illallah, there is none worthy of worship, there is no deity other than Allah. Wala maqsuda illallah, there is no objective, there is no goal illallah except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even in what you're trying to pursue, your objective and your goal, there should be no partner in that. It should only be Allah. Because the slightest amount of show and ostentation now means your objective is somebody else and is for someone else, and that constitutes shirk and ascribing partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is mentioned in the hadith, inna yasir al-riyai shirkun, that the slightest amount of riya is or constitutes shirk. Now you'll find in the Malfuzat of Hazrat Maulana Abdul Qadir Jilani, Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, that what he used to say, that O munafiqs and O mushriks. Now somebody even brought this type of query to Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahib, that he used to actually say that. And then Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahib used to say that this man was on such a type of a spiritual state, and the fact of the matter is the slightest amount of riya will constitute that of shirk. And addressing his students, then he would say that we have become munafiqs, we have become mushrikeen, because to start off with, our tawheed is incorrect. We are still going about from pillar to post showing people, and we are involved thoroughly in ostentation and riya. Now this is how meticulous, this is how cautious he was about riya himself. And today, people, when they speak about him, what do they say? That he is a mushrik, rather Allah forbid, he is a kafir. So we also need to make takrar, and the reality of this kalima needs to come into us. La ilaha illallah. When Musa alayhi salatu wasalam asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah ta'ala made talqeen and gave him instruction of this very same kalima, due to which he said, but Allah, everybody says this. And he was told to recite this, even though everybody recites it, because the recitation of every individual is so quite different from the other. Because someone's stage is different and another stage is so much more different. So wahidullah, proclaim the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this tawheed needs to become rasikh in our hearts. Adopt tawheed. You know the author of Asharatu Qawaid fi Tazkiyatin Nufus, Arab alim, he also first on the list amongst the principles in rectifying, on making tazkiyah of one's nafs, is that of tawheed, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, there was a buzruk, and they used to make nafi of even their own presence. They used to negate their own presence, that it is only Allah. La ilaha illallah. There is none worthy of worship but Allah, except Allah. But they were so strong in negating even themselves that when they used to carry out the dhikr, and when they used to say La ilaha, there is none worthy of worship, there is no deity worthy of worship, then at that time they used to disappear themselves. And when they used to say illallah, they would once again then appear. Allahu Akbar. Now that was the heights of their piety, and this type of miracle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had blessed them with. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also make our hal and our spiritual state like this. Now wahidullah, this tawheed that we need to rectify and make so correct and pure. Shaitan also, in his efforts and in his attacks against us, what does he attack first? He attacks nothing other than that of tawheed. Because like that, people are reading salat, they are keeping roza, but he affects them, and his attack against them is leave them, let them do what they want, but let me spoil and contaminate their tawheed, and let some type of shirk come inside there. There was a buzruk, and for the first time he was given this clock or this watch, and then he kept on looking at it, and he spent the entire night looking at how that clock was ticking away. Not so much amazed at this new gadget, no, not that, but how he's seeing it in front of him, how one second, one minute, one hour was passing like that of his life. A person sees his own life, rather the life of his own children, getting cut away, getting extending, and meaning they're going closer to the akhirat, etc. So, anfas ki hifazat, pass anfas, like how we look after every breath, every moment, every second. Hazrat Wala then also quotes what's written in Gulista, that in every breath we take, there are two great ni'mats. One is that we have the ni'mat of inhaling. So that is life. But more than that, after we have been given that ni'mat, if Allah Ta'ala doesn't allow us to exhale, and if something gets stuck there and we are unable to carry on breathing there, then what happens? Life then comes to an end. So he emphasizes there, and he goes on to say that in every breath that we take, there are two ni'mats of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maulana Abdul Majid Daryabadi, when that calamity took place in Bangladesh, and 40,000 lives were taken at that time there, what was his remark? And what did he have to say at that time? That even now it is the fazl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and it is not adl. It is the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and it is not his justice. Because if Allah ta'ala had to come upon his own justice, then nobody would have been spared. And that's how far away we are from all of this. At this point in time, we have to see that where is this coming from? Where is this calamity or this musibat coming from? It is coming from the side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we need to see that from which side is this calamity coming. And we have to understand that the fault is ours. And we have to come to this conclusion because it is of our negligence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now ayat of the Quran Majid were revealed. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, now when we turn our attention away from Allah, our attention is to someone else, our wives, our children, our this, our that. And when we turn our attention to Allah, we are then neglecting them. It is written about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam that even when he was focused to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there were many occasions and many times also that he used to bless the people that were around him with his attention as well, even though he was fully engrossed with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here, when a person turns to his risk and he becomes drowned in this worry and in this fikr of his risk to such an extent that there is no place or attention for anything else other than that, then this type of a halat then leads to amputation. What type of amputation? You are amputated from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. First, you are connected. So then, this nur that you have reached Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Anwarul Wasla, this here then becomes cut off. It becomes dark. It becomes covered. And as if it is calling out to the person, the owner of that nafs, that your heart has now become ruined and destroyed because the nur of yaqeen has left your heart. And now because of his weak yaqeen and because his share has become this, now what becomes his lot? Disgrace becomes his lot. Why? Because his hopes are in the makhluk. And because he has no confidence in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the grand creator and the grand owner. And also a great thing that leads to all of this is that he does not understand his taqdeer well. That whatever has happened to him and whatever is his qismat in the past, it is something from the side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he cannot now understand and verify and acknowledge the promises of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truly. So now he becomes disgraced in front of the makhluk because he goes to them, he's flattering them, he's saying this and he's saying that, he's got his hopes and his heart attached to them, due to which the end result of all of this, rather we can say like a type of punishment, is he becomes totally and completely negligent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's only here in the dunya. But the adhab in the akhirat is much more severe. If his iman was correct and his confidence in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was in place, then what would come his way? Nothing other than izzat, nothing other than that of honor. And Allah ta'ala says, وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةِ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. So Allah Ta'ala says, all honor belongs to Allah, His Rasul and the mu'mineen, but the munafiqeen do not know it. The munafiqeen do not know it. So izzat of a believer lies with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He cannot get izzat from anyone else other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he knows well that Allah ta'ala is the owner of honor, all in all of it. So in all of this here, his trust in Allah and his tawakkul in Allah helps him so much. So he does not become despondent when his share is allotted to him, because he understands well the ayat of the Quran Majid, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنْتُمْ مُؤْمِنِينَ. So the izzat of a believer lies in this, that he cuts off hopes with the makhluk and he puts his trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And his iman does not allow him to lift and raise his needs to anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And his iman does not allow him to turn his attention, the attention of his heart, to anyone else other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, what do we say about all of this here? That when a person keeps his umeed and his trust in others, then this year is absolutely and totally haram upon the individual. Haramun ala man wahhada Allah rabbahu wa afradahu ay yajtadi ahadan rifda. That he can put his trust in anyone else. Wa ya sahibi qif bi ma'al haqqi waqfatan أموت بها وجدا وأحيا بها وجدا. Okay, some other couplets that goes through and then comes right then there to the bottom. The person who Allah Ta'ala frees from the shackles of the makhluk, meaning that he has hopes with the makhluk, and Allah Ta'ala blesses him with the presence of taqwa in his heart, then Allah Ta'ala has blessed someone or that person there with much honor and has completed his ni'mat upon him. You know, having trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something very, very great. Hazrat Wala even speaks about people, Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab, he used to ask us that why have you people come here? What do you want here? What do you seek to achieve here? And what was all of this about? He wanted to impress on our hearts and our minds, it could really greatly be possible that you are sitting here in the khanqah, but you don't even understand why you're here, what are you here for, what do you wish to achieve, what is normally achieved in a khanqah. And then he would quote the example, Hazrat Wala quotes the example of a person who is this taxi driver or the shuttle in the Holy Lands, Makkah and Medina. And he's getting his rizq and his rozi from there. He's this taxi driver. He's eating from there, he's drinking from there, and he has shelter because of the barakat of that type of job that he has. But his halat is so terrible that eventually going on this way, that way, such a long time passes, and eventually this thought comes to his mind, and then he asks, but why do these people come here? How come every year they're here? And how come over and over they come to this place? What do they do here? That is his halat when he has the opportunity and he is present in the Haramain every day, all of the time, taking people from the hotel to the Haram and from the Haram to the hotel, from Makkah to Mina, to Muzdalifah, to Arafat, etc. But he knows not why even people simply come to the Holy Lands. Allahu Akbar. Hazrat Wala also gives another example of a very prominent assistant and helper, the khadim of a very great sheikh, rather a mujaddid. He used to stay with him, so much so he was blessed with so much of closeness to the sheikh. He would carry out his wudu and so many other things, and so much also that mu'tabar samjha jata tha, that he used to be understood to be reliable. But what was his condition? He used to go and mess up the affairs of the murids by putting terrible things into the heart and into the ears of the sheikh, meaning saying wrong things and messing up and muddling up everything else of the matters of the murids. So what was his end result? When the sheikh passes away, he was not even reading salat. And then people said to him, at least come to the masjid and read salat. At least read Jummah. At least come to the masjid. I mean, you stayed with Hazrat so long. And then what he would go on to say, that I did not even stay for Allah for even one day. I stayed there, but I did not even stay with Allah for one day. Bring me a towel. I did not even stay with Allah for one day. So this is the thing, and this is what happens. Hazrat Wala also speaks about, we're speaking about izzat and zillat. You know, a person, for roti, for bread, it is something so major, something so important, that it is for something like this that eventually he stretches his hands and he goes on to beg. You know, Maulana Abrarul Haq used to go on safar, and he used to always carry his flask with him, in which he had his ice water in the blazing heat there. So he used to keep it, and people used to look at Maulana, and they used to even laugh away that, hey, look at Maulana, must take this and must take that, and he's carrying this with him and that with him. They used to laugh. But eventually on the journey, and afterwards, the very same people would come back begging that, can I have a glass of water, please? Can I have a glass of water, please? That's what it's all about. That for water or for bread, eventually a person stretches his hands. And the thing that breaks the nafs the most is that of hunger. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam also, when he asked, and he did not ask the daughters of Shu'aib alayhi salatu wasalam, rather even in that heat, Hazrat Tanvi even establishes from that he did not stand in the heat. He went and he sat under the shade of a tree. ثُمَّ تَوَلَّى إِلَى الظِّلِّ. He turned to the shade of a tree and he sat in that shade. So, Bemoka, without any reason, you should not put yourself under difficulty also. Hazrat Stanwi takes out this usul and this principle from there as well. So we need to change this hal of ours. Hazrat Maulana Muhammad Ahmad Sahib used to go on to say that asalik, this person who is walking this path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his morning is so different, and his evening should be so much more different. There should be most definitely a change. Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahib used to say, the problem is that you people do not make muhasaba. If you're making muhasaba, then this is sufficient. Because after doing wrong and bad and inappropriate things, you wouldn't understand yourself then to be buzruk or good or right. At least you'll understand where you went wrong, and I need to change and I need to do this here. Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahib used to say that Ramzan is coming, get ready. Ramadan is coming, get ready. In fact, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam even alerted the Sahaba about the arrival of Ramadan and told them about the great rewards of it. When Shab-e Qadr and Laylatul Qadr would come, he would go on to say that at least achieve something now, the nisbat and the ta'alluq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahu Akbar. We're speaking about this qismat also and taqdeer. There was a person who had a huge shop in Lucknow, and he was selling his things, and he comes to Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahib and says that, listen, whatever the other shopkeepers have, I'm also stocking the same thing. But how is it that they leave my shop and they are going to other shops? Is it not that of qismat? Is it not that of the allotted portion that Allah Ta'ala has stipulated for you, and for you to believe in that taqdeer, that so much was allotted for me? And this is Allah. He turns the attention of the hearts of the people this way or that way. There was an incident of a person who loved his niece, his cousin so much, his uncle's daughter. This lady was very pretty and beautiful. And he always had his thoughts here that I will marry this woman one day. Nevertheless, taqdeer, Allah Ta'ala had it planned so much, such that she eventually gets married to someone else. Right? Okay, that's it. The story comes to an end. But here what I want to turn your attention to is that look at his hal. His hal was such that he could not tolerate this year that my desire and my love, my mind was set upon something which the taqdeer of Allah Ta'ala was against. The taqdeer of Allah, predestination, was written out for this woman to be the share of someone else. So much so, he comes and he asks maafi from that person or from the husband, saying that I made khiyanat. This year was going to be your commodity and your item, and I had this in my mind that one day I will marry this woman. So I had my intention against the hukam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahu Akbar. So the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something very, very great, because the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is qadim, and it is from ever. Allah is from ever and forever. Allah is qadim. So the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also go right into the akhirat. Know very well that Allah Ta'ala has clothed you, O mu'min, with many, many garments. Minha khal'at al-iman wal-ma'rifa wal-ta'a wal-sunnah, with the garments of iman and recognition and obedience and sunnah. Therefore, do not soil these garments by having hopes in the makhluk and putting your trust in anyone else other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now Shaykh Abul Hasan goes on to say, رَأَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ, I seen Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam in a dream. فَقَالَ لِي يَا Ali, he went on to say to me that, O Ali, that must have been his name, his pet name, maybe Abul Hasan. He goes on to say to him, طَهِّرْ ثِيَابَكَ مِنَ الدَّنَسِ, طَهِّرْ ثِيَابَكَ مِنَ الدَّنَسِ, keep your clothing clean from impurity and dirt. تُحْفَظْ بِمَدَدِ اللَّهِ, you will be protected with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fi kulli nafasin, at every moment. فَقُلْتُ, I said, O Rasul of Allah, وَمَا ثِيَابِي, what is this garments that I should keep pure from impurity and dirt? What is this garments that you are talking about? فَقَالَ, he said, اِعْلَمْ, know well that أَنَّ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى كَسَاكَ حُلَّةَ الْمَعْرِفَةِ, that Allah Ta'ala has adorned you and has given you the garments of ma'rifat, ثُمَّ حُلَّةُ الْمَحَبَّةِ, the garments of love, ثُمَّ حُلَّةَ التَّوْحِيدِ, the garments of tawheed, ثُمَّ حُلَّةَ الْإِيمَانِ, the garments of iman, ثُمَّ حُلَّةَ الْإِسْلَامِ, and the garments of Islam. Therefore, whoever has understood, whoever has recognized Allah, صَغُرَ لَدَيْهِ كُلُّ شَيْءٍ, in his eyes everything else is hitch, zero, it's worthless. وَمَنْ أَحَبَّ اللَّهِ, and whoever loves Allah, هَانَ عَلَيْهِ كُلُّ شَيْءٍ, everything becomes absolutely despicable, immaterial, worthless. وَمَنْ وَحَّدَ اللَّهِ لَمْ يُشْرِكْ بِهِ شَيْئًا, whoever truly proclaims that Allah is one, he will never ever ascribe anything to Allah. وَمَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ أَمِنَ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. Whoever believes truly in Allah, then Allah will protect him from everything else. وَمَنْ أَسْلَمَ لِلَّهِ قَلَّمَا يَعْصِيهِ. And whoever truly submits himself to Allah, very rarely you would find him disobeying Allah. وَإِنْ عَصَاهُ اِعْتَذَرَ إِلَيْهِ. And it so happens sometimes that he does disobey Allah, then he will make an excuse, meaning he would make tawbah to Allah. وَإِنْ اِعْتَذَرَ إِلَيْهِ قَبِلَ عُذْرُهُ. And when he truly turns in tawbah and puts his excuse in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will accept his excuse. So Shaykh Abul Hasan then goes on to say, فَفَهِمْتُ حِينَئِذٍ قَوْلَهُ. It is only at that time that I truly understood what's the meaning of this ayat. وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. Keep your clothing clean. Keep your clothing clean. Meaning external purity and as well as internal purity. Internal purity as well. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our hal and our spiritual state accordingly. And وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةِ. Honor belongs to Allah and His Rasul and to the mu'mineen. Allah ta'ala include us from amongst these mu'mineen where the honor belongs to them. وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. So Allah Ta'ala accept our nakal and our harkat, whatever we're trying to do and whatever we are trying to copy. And Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala make us muttasif, embellish us and decorate us with these great sifat. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ بِحُرْمَةِ سَيِّدِ النَّبِيِّ الْكَرِيمِ صلى الله عليه